Simone Biles' journey is not just a story about gymnastics, it is the story of a girl who turned pain into power, fear into focus, and challenges into unshakable triumph. Born in Columbus, Ohio, in 1997, Simone's early life was far from easy. Her biological mother struggled with addiction, and her father was not present. At just 3 years old, Simone and her siblings entered the foster care system, a place where many children lose their spark. But for Simone, this was the beginning of a transformation. When she was 6, her grandparents, Ron and Nellie Biles, adopted her, giving her not just a home but a foundation of love, discipline, and belief that would one day lift her to heights the world had never seen before. From the moment Simone stepped into a gym for a school field trip, her destiny began to unfold. She was small, energetic, and full of curiosity, and when she started flipping around, her natural talent became impossible to ignore. Her coaches immediately noticed her power, balance, and fearlessness. What others saw as raw potential, Simone turned into purpose. Every tumble, every vault, every fall was a step closer to greatness. She trained relentlessly, often spending long hours perfecting moves most gymnasts wouldn't even attempt. But her rise wasn't smooth, it was filled with failures, sacrifices, and doubts that would have broken most people. Yet Simone Biles was not most people. At just 14, she entered the world of elite gymnastics, a world dominated by perfectionism and pressure. She faced skepticism for her unconventional style. She was powerful, muscular, and didn't fit the traditional image of a gymnast. Critics whispered that she was too short, too strong, too unrefined. But Simone didn't listen. She learned early that greatness never fits into molds. With every routine, she redefined what was possible for a gymnast. And soon, the world would be forced to watch in awe. In 2013, Simone Biles made her mark by winning her first world championship. At only 16 years old, she wasn't just winning, she was dominating. Her routines combined gravity-defying skills with elegance and artistry. Judges, fans, and even fellow gymnasts had never seen such a combination of power and grace. But what truly set Simone apart wasn't her medals, it was her mindset. She wasn't just competing against others, she was competing against her own limits. Each day she asked herself, how can I be better than yesterday, and that question became her fuel. Simone's rise continued through 2014 and 2015 as she won more world championships, becoming the most decorated gymnast in the history of the sport before even reaching her 20s. But the true test came in 2016, when she stepped onto the Olympic stage in Rio de Janeiro. The world watched in anticipation as this young woman from Texas carried the weight of a nation's expectations. And then she soared. Simone Biles' rise to greatness did not end with gold medals, it evolved into something deeper, something far more powerful than athletic achievement. After Rio 2016, she stood at the peak of global fame, admired and adored by millions. But fame, as Simone soon learned, is not a shelter, it's a mirror that magnifies every flaw, every doubt, every expectation. She returned home from the Olympics a national hero, but also with the heavy realization that success comes with a cost. Everyone saw her as superhuman, a perfect machine of strength and grace. Yet inside, she was still that young girl who had faced fear, pain, and the haunting echoes of her past. The world wanted her to be flawless, but Simone wanted to be real. Between 2016 and 2020, Simone trained harder than ever, yet she also began to question what her purpose truly was. Was she just chasing medals, or meaning? Her career had already rewritten history, but her heart longed for something more lasting. She wanted to inspire not just athletes, but anyone who had ever felt small, broken, or unseen. This shift in purpose changed everything. Simone began to speak more openly about mental health, the pressures of fame, and the importance of balance. She embraced her vulnerability, and in doing so, she became stronger than ever. When the Tokyo Olympics were delayed due to the global pandemic, Simone found herself in an unfamiliar silence. Gyms closed, competition stopped, and suddenly, the routines that had defined her existence vanished. For most of her life, gymnastics had been her world, her rhythm, her reason. Without it, she was forced to look inward. The isolation brought reflection, and reflection brought clarity. She started to rediscover herself not as Simone Biles the gymnast, but as Simone the person. It was during this time that she began to see her legacy not just in terms of medals, but in how she could change lives through her voice and example. By the time the Tokyo Olympics arrived in 2021, Simone was once again the center of global attention. The pressure was immense. She carried the expectations of a nation, the hopes of young girls worldwide, and the burden of perfection. But when she stepped onto the mat, something was off. Her mind and body no longer aligned in harmony. She experienced what gymnasts call the twisties, a dangerous mental block that disconnects the body from its sense of balance. For a gymnast, this is not just frustrating, it's life-threatening. One wrong move in midair could lead to devastating injury. And so, Simone made the boldest decision of her career: she chose to withdraw. The world was stunned. Commentators debated, fans cried, critics attacked. But Simone stood firm. She wasn't quitting, she was choosing life, sanity, and self-preservation. In that moment, she redefined what it means to be a champion. Simone Biles' story wasn't just about flips, gold medals, or routines, it was about rewriting what strength truly means. After conquering the Olympics and the world stage, many assumed her path would be smooth, yet life doesn't let even the strongest glide without turbulence. Fame came fast, cameras followed everywhere, and suddenly, the little girl who once trained in silence was now a global symbol. But being a symbol is heavy. The pressure of perfection began to shadow her passion. In interviews, she smiled; in silence, she questioned. She was no longer competing against others, she was competing against her own image, the one the world had painted as superhuman. Yet, in that struggle, she realized something crucial: being the best isn't about never falling, it's about having the courage to rise every single time you do. And rise she did, not just on balance beams but in life itself. Simone began speaking openly about mental health, shattering taboos that had silenced countless athletes before her. She said, "I'm not just a gymnast. I'm human." That single statement transformed her from a champion into a voice of change. She showed that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the raw truth of strength. The moment she withdrew from competitions to protect her mental well-being, the world paused. Some critics doubted her, but millions understood her courage. She became an emblem for every person who has ever faced the weight of expectations. Her silence on the mat was louder than any victory cheer. And when she returned, calm, steady, and self-assured, it wasn't to prove anything, but to remind everyone that healing is power too. Biles' comeback was poetic, every move refined by pain, every smile deeper with wisdom. She was no longer chasing medals, she was chasing meaning. The young girl who once feared being too small now stood taller than ever, not in height, but in purpose. She began mentoring young gymnasts, sharing her story not as a tale of success but as a testament to endurance. She told them, "You can fall 1,000 times, but what defines you is standing up that one more time." Those words became a mantra across the sports world, resonating in locker rooms and living rooms alike. Her legacy started to evolve beyond gymnastics. She was now an advocate, an icon, a reminder that greatness comes from the soul. Simone didn't just break records, she broke barriers, proving that the mind and heart matter as much as the body. Even in her quietest moments, her presence thundered with inspiration. Every medal she had ever earned now told a different story, not of perfection, but of persistence. She had turned her stumbles into lessons and her doubts into fuel. Her influence rippled far beyond the gym. Schools invited her to speak. Parents pointed to her as an example of courage. Young girls, once afraid to dream, now believed they could soar. After the spotlight dimmed and the noise of the crowd faded, Simone Biles faced something far greater than any Olympic challenge: herself. The silence of success can sometimes echo louder than applause. She had medals, records, recognition, and yet deep inside, she began asking, "Who am I without gymnastics?" That question frightened her, because for most of her life, the world had only seen Simone the gymnast, not Simone the human. For years, her identity was tied to perfect routines, flawless dismounts, and gold around her neck. But now she wanted something deeper: peace, balance, and meaning that wasn't measured in points or podiums. She took time away, surrounded herself with family, friends, and her own thoughts. The world expected her next performance; she chose her next breath instead. It was in those quiet months that she rediscovered the little girl who used to flip in her backyard for fun. She remembered the joy that started it all, not the pressure, not the fame, but the pure, wild love for movement. Slowly, she started healing, not just physically but emotionally. Therapy sessions became her new training ground. Her battles weren't on a mat anymore, they were within her mind. And each day she showed up, not to prove she was strong, but to accept that it was okay to be human. When she finally returned to the gym, her energy was different. Her coaches saw it, her teammates felt it. She was calmer, wiser, and more powerful, not because she was unbreakable, but because she had learned how to rebuild herself. Simone started using her platform to speak openly about mental health. In a world obsessed with perfection, she became the face of imperfection, and that's what made her truly extraordinary. She shared her story not to gain sympathy but to give strength to others who were struggling silently. "It's okay to not be okay," she told her fans. Those simple words carried more weight than gold medals ever could. Athletes from every sport started coming forward, acknowledging their own struggles. She had unknowingly started a revolution, one that reminded the world that champions cry too, and that vulnerability is not a weakness but a profound form of courage. As time passed, Simone's influence expanded beyond gymnastics. She became an advocate, a mentor, and a beacon for self-care. She encouraged people to chase excellence, yes, but also to know when to pause, breathe, and heal. That message resonated deeply, especially with the younger generation who often measured their worth by likes, followers, and achievements. Simone told them, "You don't have to prove your value to anyone. You already are enough." It was as if she had found her real calling, not just to perform, but to empower. She partnered with organizations, launched mental health initiatives, and used her story as a bridge between pain and hope. When she returned to major competitions again, the world watched in awe.